I thought this was fake the first time I heard about it. A nuclear-powered jet engine sounded like one of those Cold War ideas that looked good on paper and nowhere else. But then I started reading the files, and the strange part is, it actually worked. Not perfectly, not safely, but it worked. The goal was simple: build a bomber that never needs to land. No refueling, no stopping, just stay in the air for weeks. And during the Cold War, that sounded worth almost any risk imaginable, because if the aircraft never lands, nobody can destroy it on the ground. That was the logic. The engine itself was surprisingly straightforward. Instead of burning fuel, it used a nuclear reactor to heat the air. That hot air created thrust exactly like a normal jet engine, and somehow they made it run. But there was a catch nobody could ignore. The exhaust was radioactive, which meant the aircraft was leaving contamination behind it everywhere it flew. Then, in 1959, they tested it for real in the Idaho desert. HTRE-3, 2 jet engines running entirely on nuclear heat, and the test worked. That's the part that stayed with me, because failed experiments usually disappear quietly. This one got classified. And even today, parts of the radiation data are still blacked out. The real problem was the crew. Shielding the pilots from radiation made the aircraft too heavy to operate properly. So eventually the conversation changed from, how do we stop the radiation, to, how much radiation can a person survive? And yes, they actually discussed using older crew members because they might not live long enough to see the long-term effects. That is a real thing they talked about, and the evidence is still there. HTRE-2 and HTRE-3 are still sitting in Idaho today, still radioactive. That's the thing about contamination. You can bury files, you cannot bury the ground. The desert keeps the record anyway. Officially, the program ended because missiles had replaced nuclear bombers. Maybe. But by then, the project had already produced years of radiation reports, contamination studies, and exposure data. The engine worked. The paperwork became dangerous. And suddenly the whole thing disappeared into classified archives. The program left behind 21 technical reports called the Apex series, thousands of pages covering reactor tests, contamination, and crew exposure. Some were released, some still are not. Even now, and honestly, that tells you more than people realize, because the idea never actually disappeared. Modern nuclear propulsion projects are using the same basic physics again today. Different technology, same risks, same questions, and some of those questions still do not have good answers. Right now, those engines are still sitting behind a fence in the Idaho desert. Silent, cold, still radioactive. The files open just enough for us to know this happened, but not enough to know the full story. And maybe that's why this program still feels unsettling all these years later. Because the machine worked,